Welcome back, everybody, to another survival challenge. But before we get started, a couple of announcements, just in case you missed my Space Monkeys video, which, looking at that viewer count, you most certainly did. But hey, you know, you win some, you lose some. It happens. To keep it short, I'm calling upon the entire community. I want to make survival challenges where people enter the worlds of Elden Ring and Warframe, Warhammer, and Destiny. But I don't know anything about those universes. It would take me a ridiculously long amount of time to learn enough to be able to make that video on my own. So, I need you people to get out there, go to your favorite lore channels or scaling channels of any of those 4 universes, and tell them that you want them to make a collaboration video with me, Rouga Rabid. I have already sent messages to several different channels, and I will continue to do so, but I'm just one comment. You need to show all these channels that the demand is there for a collaboration with me that would convince them to actually do it. And that is what Operation Space Monkey is. And it will be continuing until, I guess, someone says, okay, let's do it. So get on out there, people, so I can bring you more cool shit. But I have wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. So let's introduce you to the world of Killing Floor. Well, there actually is a bit of a problem with actually using this universe because Killing Floor 3 is coming out next year, and all evidence points to the fact they're just going to reboot the entire storyline. So it's very possible that everything that I say in this video is going to be made moot, essentially, when the new game comes out. I'm aware of that, but couldn't really think of a better horror universe to stick everybody in. So we're going with this one temporarily until I come up with a better one. That's how we do things over here at Rouga Rabid's channel. We just do whatever the fuck we want. Oh, what kind of a world is Killing Floor? The uninitiated might think that Killing Floor is just a zombie series where zombies run around and bite people and turn them into giant monsters, but no, it's quite a bit weirder than that. In an alternate future, the British government was trying to create super soldiers, so they got a doctor to come in and basically make them for them. And that doctor was fucking nuts. Did a bunch of fuck shit and started cloning his own family members and turning them into crazed, deformed monsters. The British government realized their mistake and that the doctor that they had hired was fucked out of his mind and decided to shut the program down. By that point, the doctor got pretty damn bold and he said, you know what? Fuck you guys, I'm doing this shit anyway. So he just went along and kept doing it. After months and months of experimentation and basically creating an entire army of the most fucked up monsters you could possibly imagine, he came to the conclusion that this new species that he's made is superior to humanity and should just be the dominant race on planet Earth. Who hired this guy? So he decided to just release them upon the world. This caused a massive war between the British government and the Specimens, which is the monsters, also known as Zeds. A war they had absolutely no way of actually winning. But there was a bit of light at the end of that tunnel as they finally caught up with the doctor, cornering him in one of his labs. While trying to break into this lab, the doctor did some last-minute experimentations on himself out of desperation for survival, turning himself into the monster that we know today as the Patriarch. The Patriarch slaughtered all of the soldiers that made their way into the lab and escaped. Later on, the Patriarch was eventually caught up to by an even larger force of soldiers who finally were able to take him down. But over the course of the next couple of weeks, the British government kept getting claims of sightings of the Patriarch all across Britain. This made them come to the conclusion that Patriarch probably cloned himself several times. And that is what the Specimens are. They are a bunch of mutated clones. There are different underground facilities like sewer tunnels, laboratories, and all sorts of other places where they just mass produce these motherfuckers. And they can mass produce them at an extremely fast rate. For instance, the Clot, which is like the weakest specimen in the entire game, are created using the Clot Mother, essentially a giant mutant asshole, like not a dick, but like an actual it looks like an asshole, like a sphincter. Anyway, the Specimens take a bunch of people and guts and blood and gore, and they just chuck it inside this asshole, and then the Clot Mother, the asshole, just sort of turns it all up together and spits it out as a clot. So a clot is basically just a bunch of different body parts fused together and then given the DNA of the Patriarch's son and just made into hundreds of thousands of identical clot creatures. While you have other enemies like the Flesh Pounds that are actually shown built and put together via factories, with a giant muscular cloned main body and then actual machinery put onto the Flesh Pound, hands and eyes and chest and shit, and then just tossed out into the wild to murder and run free. Within the Killing Floor universe, there are so many of these locations that are just producing different specimens, and there's so many specimens pouring out into the street that just can't be stopped by normal means that there really isn't any way for the humans in Killing Floor to stop the infestation of specimens. Within the Killing Floor timeline, it took less than a month for them to go from just the city of London to spreading across all of Europe. And the exact number of how many Patriarchs, how many labs, how many specimens there are, and where they are being created at is completely unknown to anyone, including the Patriarch, because there are several Patriarchs all setting up these labs. It's basically an unstoppable spread of murderous monsters. As usual, I'm not going to go down the list of every single specimen you see throughout the entirety of the game, because there's a lot, but I will talk about some of them and what what they are capable of. One of the easy things about this is that most of them don't have a lot of hacks. Their powers are all about how easily they can spread and how physically strong they are. They have a couple like the Siren that can scream this really powerful sonic attack and things of that nature, but again, it's all physical shit. They're not possessing people, they're not mind fucking you, they're not doing the dreaded transmog and transforming you into some little creature. They're just gonna kill you like a normal fucking person. So it's actually pretty easy to list off what they're capable of. All specimens are stronger than humans. It is stated clearly that they are enhanced with superhuman physical ability. Even the weakest among them, like Clots, are capable of tearing through metal, whereas the stronger base specimen, like the Flesh Pound, can just straight up smash directly through metal walls. Many of the higher up specimen are also extremely durable, capable of taking rocket launchers and mini guns and all kinds of explosions and fire and toxins and every sort of thing you can throw at them and just really not care all that much. The Killing Floor universe has everything from plasma weapons to laser weapons to fucking gravity guns. The specimens just eat that shit like it's Thanksgiving dinner. They really do not give two shits. Although consistent gunfire over a very long period of time and a whole hell of a lot of explosives does eventually take them down. They are not immune to guns. Let's make that very clear. They can just take a whole hell of a lot of it. And on top of the specimen being very strong and very durable, a lot of them also have natural weaponry. The Skrakes have chainsaws attached to their arms. The Flesh Pounds have two giant drill grinders strapped to their hands. What the fuck? You have the Husk that has a rocket launcher for an arm. And the Gorefast that just straight up have swords. All these different assholes just come running at you in great numbers very fast, faster than normal humans can run, with the sole purpose of murdering you for basically no fucking reason. Just because. Those are not the biggest issue that our heroes are going to face. The biggest issues are the bosses. I don't use Versus Battle Wiki, but I do occasionally go on there because I like a good laugh. You know, we all like to laugh. Who doesn't? And Versus Battle Wiki has the Patriarch listed at small building level. Why? Because the Patriarch can survive being hit by a missile. That's their reasoning. Did they play the first 5 minutes of the game and just fuck off? Yes, the Patriarch at the beginning of Killing Floor 1 can survive a missile to the face. Yes, congratulations, you turned the game on. Did they miss the entire rest of the series as well as all the fucking DLC that's been released for this game? Taking missiles to the face is child's play. The original Patriarch from Killing Floor 1 could do that, and he got a massive upgrade in Killing Floor 2, becoming faster, more durable, and more physically powerful. A missile to the face does nothing. You'd have to shoot a missile to his face like 80 goddamn times to bring down the Patriarch. As I said before, Killing Floor has laser weapons, plasma weapons. The fucking missile weapon is like one of the starting shit that you can buy for like $200 in the store. You end up getting shit that is several times more powerful than a missile. There's a fucking gravity gun, man. There's a shrink ray in this game. You're trying to compare the ridiculousness that is the Killing Floor weapons and bosses to a basic fucking starting rocket launcher? Get the fuck out of here. Bosses in the Killing Floor universe has everything from nerve gas to acid manipulation, summoning, mortars, rocket launchers, energy shields, and other force fields, fucking absorption, electricity manipulation, regeneration. One of the bosses, the Matriarch, is just straight up a fucking mech. Technology you'd expect to see in the fucking Armored Core series. Small building. These motherfuckers are large building a city block at the bare minimum. A rocket launcher would take a half an hour just to chip down this motherfucker's health. And that's if it doesn't have energy shields and heal. You're lying. Versus Battle Wiki, you're a bunch of fucking liars. Anyway, sorry about my rant. Let's continue. So first up, we have the Patriarch. He's got mortars, he's got a minigun, he's got a force field, he's got this little weird tentacle thing that comes out of his chest, grabs you and throws you around. He has a cloaking device like the fucking Predator. And he has built-in injectors that are inside of the metal parts of his body that when his health gets too low, they inject him and he heals. Oh, and the energy shield also comes back if you don't kill him fast enough. It's a regenerating energy field. That's fun. And while he's the first boss the game ever had, and very likely the most iconic boss the game has, all the bosses they've introduced after him are kind of more impressive. Like the Patriarch's partner in crime, Hans Volter. He's a crazy-ass fucked up Nazi scientist, so probably not the best dude. Just like the Patriarch, he wields guns and a force field. That's about the only thing they share. Hans, because again, he's a Nazi scientist, really likes the different poison gas grenades, including a nerve gas that shuts down your entire nervous system. Cause you know, who the fuck needs that? He also has the ability of regeneration, as well as absorbing someone's life force on contact. Didn't I just say the series doesn't have any hacks? Where the fuck did that come from? Nobody else in the series has anything close to that. It's so fucking random. If that's a power or technology that exists in this world, why is he the only one who has it? Give that shit to the Flesh Pound. Jesus Christ. But if you still don't think that that's enough, then they have the Abomination. As crazy as the absorption power being in this universe is, it doesn't come anywhere near touching the Abomination's powers. So the Abomination seems like your normal bloat type enemy, you know, like you would see in Left 4 Dead or one of these games. He's a big old fat dude dude who spills bile everywhere. Except that Abomination's bile is acid. It's not poison. It burns through metal. But that's not where it ends. I need you to really listen to this part. The Abomination has the ability to make his acid come to life, turn into a person, and then fucking chase you, jump on you, and explode, and get acid everywhere. He can't grant life to anything else, just the acid. What a weird fucking power. You have life bestowal, but only limited to acid. I'm sorry, but that does take the record for weirdest fucking power of the week. Hands down, not even close. So while it's super not a good idea to get anywhere near the Abomination because he'll fucking throw up acid on you and just sort of secretes it everywhere around him, you constantly will have acid people chasing you. What do you even do about that? And there's a lot of them too. It's not like one or two. He sends like 30 of these bitches at you at a time. You're basically just running away, shooting at liquid people. Next boss, we have the King Flesh Pound, which admittedly is pretty boring. He's just a steroided out flesh pound that's bigger, stronger, faster, and has a laser beam. The annoying part about him is that he seems to have some sort of control over other flesh pounds, so anytime you have to fight the King Flesh Pound, you also have to fight like 10 other normal flesh pounds, who again can just bust right through metal fucking walls like the goddamn Kool-Aid Man. And King Flesh Pound is stronger than that. So what happens is you get like 10 or 15 of these motherfuckers plus the King Flesh Pound just running at you at speeds no human could possibly run at, just trying to barrel through you like a fucking demonic Kool-Aid Man. I mean, hey, it's better than the fucking acid army. Next up, you have the Vile Matron, which many people have theorized is just an evolved form of the Clot Mother. Yeah, that's another thing I probably should have mentioned. All of the specimens will evolve and become stronger the longer they're alive, as well as the things that create them just creating better and better versions. I mean, the entire Killing Floor timeline's only over the course of like a month from the point the specimens come out to where they are now, and we've seen them evolve drastically over that time period. But the Vile Matron's a boss who basically has the ability to just create more specimens, just like passively. They just keep coming out of her over and over and over again. And as long as she's alive and their cloning technology ensures that they're going to have many of her, you're essentially just going to have these moving factories going across the entire land, summoning fucking specimens everywhere they go. And then lastly, you have the most powerful of all the boss monsters, the Matriarch. That's the one that's basically like a mech. She just has like everything. If another boss has it, she probably has it too. She's got the mini guns and the mortars and the energy shields and the nerve gas grenades and lightning weapons and all different kinds of crazy. It's a fucking mech. She's got a bunch of mech shit. The character is not capable of destroying a mech. They're not going to fight the Matriarch because that's what the Matriarch is. She's a mech. I've said that a lot, but yeah, she's a mech. So at the end of all this, what do we have? Well, the Killing Floor universe is a universe that is filled with psychotic superhuman clones that are going around on a massive non-stop killing spree that at the bare minimum have the power level to smash through metal walls, and at the top level can just eat all of this futuristic military weaponry like they're fucking pancakes while slaughtering through whole armed platoons like they're absolutely nothing. So let's find out how our heroes will prevail. But before we do that, let's lay down some ground rules. We're going to do this a little differently than we've done any of the past survival challenges. We can't just take these characters and throw them in the Killing Floor universe, because then they'll have access to all of the different Killing Floor weapons, and that's boring. Because it won't be them versus Killing Floor, it'll be like them with the Killing Floor weapons. It's cheating. But at the same time, you can't realistically say that any of these characters will actually defeat the Killing Floor armies, because they're just infinite clones that just keep coming again and again and again that constantly evolve. It's not possible for any non-superpowered godlike being to get through them all. You'd have to essentially erase them all from existence in a split second. Otherwise, one of them will just keep making more. So what's the alternative? Well, I'm gonna gamify this up quite a bit. I'm taking the character and I'm popping them out of their world and putting them in a neutral zone. They're gonna have access to all of their weapons and powers they have in their game, and then I'm just gonna send waves and waves and waves of these clones at them, and we're not gonna talk about necessarily if they could survive or if they can't, but more so, how long will they survive? How many of these Zeds they'll be able to kill, and at what point will these Zeds become too much for them to deal with? We're gonna take everything into account here as well. These are all horror games, and in horror games there's certain things that have to come into account that is not necessarily the case for an action game. For instance, these characters are gonna need to sleep, they're gonna need to eat, they're gonna need to watch their ammunition. Their stamina is going to be an issue. If you're fighting 200 fucking Zeds, are you gonna get too fucking tired to finish them all off? Are they gonna kill you before you just pass the fuck out? That's gonna be a problem. We gotta go by survival horror rules here. Now don't worry, all their weapons will be completely filled at the end of each wave, and they will have a little bit of time to rest in between. But each wave will get successively harder and harder and harder. So how long do these motherfuckers last? Let's find out. First up on the chopping block, we have Ethan Thomas from the Condemned series. Ethan was a homicide detective that was going after a serial killer who then framed him for one of his murders. So Ethan went on the run trying to clear his name, and in the process ran into a bunch of supernatural bullshit that I'm not gonna go into right now, and it basically scarred him for life. He quit being a cop and took up the drinking, and basically became just this, like, what the fuck, Ethan? Man became became a goddamn bear. Not that kind of bear. Like an actual physical bear. I mean, look at this dude. Who the fuck becomes an alcoholic and gets in better shape? Anyway, Ethan has a lot of stuff going for him. For one, he's probably the best physical fist fighter in horror gaming ever. He goes through most of the game fighting tons of people, including supernatural enemies, with just his bare fucking fists. Not his bare fists, his bare fists. Man snaps arms and knees and smashes people's faces through walls. I know I keep bringing this up, but he literally just fights like you would give a fucking bear boxing gloves and watch him go. He's just physically superior to pretty much everybody he goes up against, and he slaps them around like children, even supernatural beings. On top of that, he's a firearms expert and a master of improvisational weaponry. He'll grab literally any weapon to fight you with, whether it be a crowbar or a piece of wood or a piece of glass or a baseball bat or a machete. He doesn't care. He will find something to fucking hit you with. And he's so physically strong that he usually breaks the thing that he's hitting you with, whether that be a crowbar or a stop sign or whatever. You have any idea how hard it is to break a crowbar? And then you get into his supernatural abilities because, of course, his physicals weren't supernatural enough. First off, you have his ability that may not be that useful in this particular circumstance, but he essentially has the ability to sense evil, and he has visions that lead him to said evil. He can sense death and murder and just scummy people. The reason why I don't think this will be all that useful is the fuck's he gonna do with it? He is surrounded by creatures that are just murdering like crazy. I mean, maybe he'll get a vision that'll help him find Patriarch, but what good would that do? We don't know how many clones of Patriarch there are, and the odds of him getting a vision of Patriarch in this sea of evil, visions that he can't control when he gets or what they point him to, I just don't see being all that useful. The other power he has, which will be very useful, is a sonic yell? Yeah, like Black Canary. Like he's got fucking Black Canary powers. Again, super fucking random for this kind of game. But yeah, he can scream and it just like breaks metal, like smashes through metal walls and doors and shit like that. Oh, okay. Now this sonic yell is by far his best attack. However, I do think it's going to be a problem here. In Killing Floor, there's an enemy called the Siren, and she screams not nearly as powerful as Ethan's, but it is a sonic scream that not only hurts her enemies and like dazes them and shit, but also summons other specimens and they start running to the sound, which basically means that Ethan will not be able to just spam his sonic attack on everybody he comes into contact with. He can use it if he gets in a jam and he really needs it to kill something that's coming after him, but once he does, he's summoning a bunch more specimens, so it's sort of like a dice roll, and that's all of his abilities. So how does Ethan do? Not really all that well. While he does clearly have superhuman strength, there's no evidence that it touches the super strength of the clots and even the low level specimens who are still capable of ripping through metal walls. Now they don't rip through metal walls quite as quickly as the higher level specimens like the flesh pounds, but they could still do it given enough time, which is more than I could say about Ethan. Ethan's super strength is like the ability to snap bones like they're twigs. He never just punches through a metal fucking wall. He punches through wooden walls, but that's kind of a totally different level than what the clots and shit can do. So while I think he is a physically skilled enough fighter to take on the lower levels, he should probably avoid it because just physically they're stronger than he is. His ability to use improvised weapons will also help him quite a bit. I could see him killing a Gorefast and then ripping the fucking sword off the Gorefast's arm and using that as his own sword. I can absolutely see him doing things like that because he does things like that in his own game. But he's really going to want to rely on his guns because his physicals just don't quite match theirs. And as far as that goes, he is a trained military vet and a master marksman, so he'll be able to last a good bit against the low-level specimens. It's when he starts getting to the higher-level specimens like the Skrakes and the flesh pounds that he's going to start having some very serious problems, because the truth is, his guns just really won't do it. All of his guns are very normal guns. 12-gauge shotgun, 45, sniper rifle, basically shit that you could buy at your local Walmart. And if you're not from the South, I don't know, wherever you get your guns, we can buy that shit anywhere. It is going to take a lot of time and ammunition for him to take any of the flesh pounds out. So he's going to have to strategically use his guns with his sonic blast in order to wipe them out without them killing him first, which he is capable of doing, but again, he then will summon more specimens every time he does that. So can he survive all the waves? He can, but it's going to be really fucking difficult. And then when he arrives at the bosses like the Patriarch, I honestly don't think he really stands a chance. Bosses are significantly stronger than the flesh pound, not just a little bit. And his little blasting through metal walls thing, that's equal to what the flesh pound can do, but that's not equal to what the bosses can do. So even his strongest attack is not comparative to what the bosses are capable of doing. And that's even without their energy shields and nerve gases and all sorts of weapons that just straight up don't even exist in his universe. So the sad thing is, Ethan is not surviving that many waves. He is very likely going to die once the higher level Zeds show up, and not that many of them, by the way. And even if he barely survives that, by the time he gets to a wave wave where it's pretty much all higher levels, he's dead. And if he gets to a boss, he's dead. Oh, and I completely forgot the fact that Ethan gets the shakes when he's not drinking alcohol. Yeah, he's an alcoholic and it's a game mechanic. If you don't get alcohol, you can't aim your fucking gun right. So his master marksmanship will take a hit if he's not fucking buzzed. So yeah, sorry Ethan, the Condemned games are awesome. You're fucking dead. Next up we have Jesse Faden. And while Ethan Thomas was kinda superhuman, from this point on, every character we're talking about is just straight up superhuman. None of these motherfuckers can be classified as regular people. Jesse Faden is a woman who was born with a connection to a frequency. This is gonna be hard to explain, but basically, there's this alternate being from another universe that exists within our universe sort of, but it's a different frequency, and it has a connection to the mind of Jesse Faden, and Jesse Faden can talk to it, and it doesn't really talk to her, but it can communicate what it wants and feels to her, and they sort of have this symbiotic relationship. It can help her, make her feel better, and ask her questions, and all this sort of thing, and it's very abstract in nature. But one of the good things of this is that Jesse Faden gets fucking psychic powers from this. She can telekinetically move things, she can levitate herself, she can do this like force push shit that like just breaks right through fucking concrete, like concrete pillars and shit. She has this gun that can only work if you have telekinesis because it's just a bunch of crazy moving parts, and her telekinesis is what makes the parts move, so she's the only one who can fire it. And then she can then alter those pieces within the gun to make it a shotgun or a pistol or an automatic rifle type thing, and it's really cool. It's like a weird make your own gun sort of thing. And for whatever reason that I'm not sure of, but it has unlimited ammo in the lore. She can just keep shooting shit out of it, and then it takes a second and she has to like do something where it redoes its ammo somehow because it's all just fucking weird sci-fi horror magic, and then she can just keep shooting. So ammo is not going to be an issue for her either. This psychic link also gives her a bunch of other powers that I don't really think will be all that useful. Like she can close tears in reality and shit because she has a connection to a being who lives in another frequency. She can like close the tears that are also leading to other frequencies. It's not a combat oriented power and she's never been able to use it in combat, so it's not really relevant, but it is cool. So how does Jesse do? Maybe kind of worse than Ethan? A little bit? Not really, sort of. Maybe. Let's talk about it. So having unlimited ammo and telekinesis is really good, but her telekinesis isn't all that strong. The best thing she's shown doing with it is blasting directly through concrete walls and concrete pillars, and that's really, really good, but it's not fucking giant reinforced steel doors like the higher up specimens are shown doing. So even her strongest abilities, which are her telekinetic powers, are not capable of matching the strength of the best specimens. Ethan Thomas might have been significantly weaker than her and with less powers, but at least his scream could match the power of the flesh pound. So where does that leave Jesse? Well, her guns will still damage them. She won't run out of ammo, so that's really good. She can make shields, like she levitates all of the rock around her to block things, so gunfire won't be an issue for her all the time. I think she survives longer than Ethan because of her variety of abilities that she has. Ethan doesn't have defensive abilities. He doesn't have anywhere of escaping being surrounded by a bunch of monsters. Jesse does. She can levitate away, for instance. Again, the concrete shield thing. The fact that her gun doesn't run out of ammo means she can just spray and pray. She doesn't really have to worry about all that kind of stuff. But she does have the downside that none of her abilities are really going to be capable of taking down the higher ups. So this entire match is going to be relying on her stamina. And while she has very, very high stamina, it's not limitless. Her game takes place over the course of, I don't know, a whole night, maybe a day. You're not really sure because it all takes place inside of a building, but it's a decently long time, and she fights a bunch of people and never gets any rest. Okay, fine, but you're talking about literally fighting armies. I mean, Jesse at absolute maximum only maybe fights 15, 20 people at a time. She's going to be fighting hundreds upon hundreds of Zeds, multiple wave after wave after wave, and her abilities are going to be a lot weaker than that of Ethan Thomas's, so it's going to take her a lot longer to take down the higher ups. By the time she gets to the bosses, she's just straight up not going to be able to. There's nothing that she has that can even damage them. Her pistols are not really shown having more or less power than her telekinetic powers. All I can really go by is that they don't do quite as much damage as her telekinetic push. So that would be evidence that they're weaker than her telekinesis. So if her telekinesis isn't going to be able to do that much damage, her guns certainly won't. She might not even be able to get through their shields to actually damage them. And even if she does, they can regenerate. And that's just talking about whether or not she can hurt them. That doesn't say anything about whether or not she could survive the nerve gas or the absorption or the fucking lightning powers that the matriarch has. Just any of this shit. When I picked Jesse for this list, I thought she would do the best. But no, the other two do way better. Next up, we have the Point Man from Fear. And this is where it gets considerably closer. So the Point Man is the son of this psychic mass murderer named Alma, and the government, excited that he may have psychic powers, decided to basically raise raise him in a government facility and train him to be a super soldier. Well, they were kind of bummed out because he didn't have the psychic powers that his mother did. So they did a bunch of experiments and shit on him to try and turn him into a super soldier, thinking that maybe because he was a son of Alma, he would be physically more capable of being upgraded in the first place. And then they eventually sort of retcon this by saying, no, he had the powers all along. He had powers even when he was a child, but they still experiment on him. Anyway, it's all very convoluted. There's like 3 fucking timelines in this game. All you need to know is the Point Man is a nameless super soldier with a fucked up childhood. That pretty much sums him up. And what abilities exactly did the Point Man get? Well, I'm glad you asked. So, essentially, super speed and reflexes. Pretty much. That's pretty much the extent of it, really. The game states the Point Man can process information 5 times faster than that of a normal person. This increases his reaction speed considerably, and in the game, it basically looks like you're slowing down time. But it should be noted he is not actually slowing down time. He's just registering information faster. It's also said that his physical speed is about 3 times faster than a normal person. So I'll let you do the fucking math on that. While many of the specimens are capable of running faster than any human can run, there's nothing in the Killing Floor games saying that it's 3 times the speed of a person with 5 times the fucking calculating ability. That's just nowhere to be found. On top of that, the Point Man was trained from a very young age to be a soldier, so he's about as good of a soldier as one can be. Like, literally from the moment he can walk, he was trained to fucking shoot and kill people. This is going to give him a massive advantage against the specimens, as he's going to be more capable than all of them. He also has minor telekinesis and telepathy, but they're not really going to help him because he can only like move small shit, and he can really just communicate to people on occasion in their head, but it's nothing that's really going to help him against the specimens. It's really going to be the speed and his guns, and he has a lot of really broken guns. He doesn't just have regular weapons. He's got laser weapons and all kinds of other crazy futuristic shit, despite the fact that I don't think the Fear games take place in the future. They don't seem like they take place in the future. Maybe they do. I don't know. I'll check on that later. But his guns sure as shit seem like they're from the future, and his higher up guns really shouldn't have too much of an issue hurting the specimens. With his normal weapons, he's easily small building. With his better weapons, he's easily large building. So he will be capable of damaging all the specimens and even possibly the bosses. So the question becomes, how far does he get? Pretty fucking far. I'm not gonna lie, the speed is really gonna help him, probably more than anything else, more than the training, more than anything else. Being that much faster than all the people who are attacking you is really gonna help when you've got like 400 fucking people chasing after you. His skill and experience in combat are gonna mean that he's going to be able to make smart decisions. He's not going to freak out or get all stressed. He's going to be able to deal with the situation at hand in the best way possible that it needs to be dealt with. I don't think he's going to allow himself to get surrounded and outnumbered. I think he'll be pretty good at keeping his back clear and not stupidly walking backwards into a bunch of fucking specimen. Like, he's all good on that front. It's really just going to be when he starts fighting the bigger guys. So the stronger specimen, the thing that makes them so difficult to deal with, especially the flesh pound, is that it runs at you at speeds a normal person can't possibly run faster than. The Point Man isn't going to have that issue. He will be able to outrun the flesh pound and get to safety. So like 90% of the danger factor with the flesh pound is completely gone. It only has melee attacks. Its one and only thing it can do is chase you at high speeds and beat you with this giant grinder fist. If it can't catch up to you, it can't fucking beat you with the grinder fist. And since Point Man's guns are strong enough to take him down, this really won't be much of an issue. The bosses are going to be the main issue. And while his guns are strong enough to hurt the bosses, they're not strong enough to one-shot the bosses. And I wouldn't say they're strong enough to hurt the bosses quickly either. So this is where he's going to hit the majority of his problems. I think that it will be a challenge for him to deal with any individual boss, but not impossible for him to overcome. Can he take on, defeat the Patriarch? Yes. With difficulty, he can. His chance of winning drops a bit depending on which boss he has to fight against. Like, he's not going to do as good against Matriarch or Hans as he would against, say, the King Flesh Pound, but I think I'll put it at like a 40-60% split either way. If he fights against the Patriarch, he has a 60% chance of winning. If he fights against Hans or the Matriarch, he has a 40% chance of winning. Why? Because he's not going to kill them very fast. He doesn't have any defense against things like nerve gas or the absorption powers. And while his weapons are strong enough to take down the Patriarch, the Matriarch is considerably more durable. Maybe he will also be able to take down the Matriarch. Maybe. It's going to take a lot longer than the Patriarch, and the Matriarch has way more weapons than the Patriarch does. But honestly, when it really comes down to it, the main issue he's going to have is stamina. Point Man is fast and skilled and all this stuff, but he doesn't seem to have any enhanced stamina. He's shown getting tired several points in his own game. He breathes heavy when he goes through very physically enduring situations. This is really going to be the biggest issue that's going to hinder him, because if he's fighting wave after wave after wave with small breaks in between, and each wave gets longer and stronger with more and more specimen and more bosses, it's just a matter of time before he's just going to tire out. Whether he can take on the boss or not. Maybe he can beat Hans Volter once. Maybe he can really struggle and strive and defeat him. But you know what? Next wave's going to be double the enemies, Hans Volter again, and a Patriarch. Because again, these motherfuckers keep cloning themselves. In an endless wave with army after army after army constantly coming at you, a vast majority of characters will die eventually. But sadly, the Point Man is probably the only one that's gonna die because he just tires himself out. I'm not even gonna necessarily say that he would die because of his strength or speed or skill. It's all stamina. He just doesn't have that much. I know one thing that people are gonna bring up is the nuke thing. Basically, a nuclear reactor explodes and the Point Man has to run away from the explosion. And then he gets to this fence and he can't get past it and he turns around and you can see the nuke explosion coming closer and closer to you and you eventually pass out. Oh shit, he survived the nuke. No, he fucking didn't. We see the smoke stop right in front of him. Then a helicopter comes and picks him up. There's no smoke to be seen. And then later on, he's up in the helicopter looking down and you can see the range of the explosion. And he was not in it. If he was laying inside of that range where that smoke is, how would the helicopter have even found him? What happened here is simple. He ran right outside the range of the explosion. Is that realistic? No. In real life, he would have gotten fucked up. But you know what? In real life, a nuclear explosion travels a lot faster than this anyway. So obviously, realism is not what they're going for here. Everybody knows the rule. If you don't see someone die on screen, you assume they're alive. Well, if you don't see someone get hit by a nuke, you don't assume they got hit by it. We see the Point Man get fucked up throughout the entirety of the Fear series from all sorts of things that are considerably weaker than a nuke. So I don't know why people would just assume that he survived that shit. This is some more of that scalar bullshit. They see any little thing and try to manipulate and twist the situation to try and make characters seem as powerful as humanly possible. Motherfucker didn't get hit by the nuke. He's been hurt by things that are way less than a nuke. He can't survive a fucking nuke. Come on now. This series has never been something that was that insane with power levels. Last on the list is Torque from the Suffering series. So this one's really interesting because Torque isn't one person. He's three people. There's Torque, who can best be described as like a thug that means well. There's Blackmore, who's a sadistic crime lord. And then there's the Creature. So the series starts with Torque in prison for the murder of his own family on death row before a bunch of these creatures break into the prison and start killing a bunch of people. They're called malefactors. I'm not going to go into the whole story of what malefactors are, but basically Torque breaks out of prison, fights all the malefactors, and then there's this whole story that the game follows because, you know, games have that. Torque has all manner of crazy powers and really probably doesn't even belong in a horror game. He should probably belong in some kind of action series. I mean, even the absolute weakest of malefactors are capable of just ripping the fucking cell bars off the jail cell, like the whole door, just rip it out of the fucking wall, basically. And Torque is stated to be capable of killing these things with his bare hands. He's shown doing that. He has very quick regen, being able to heal broken bones and gashes and all sorts of other stuff in just a couple of seconds. He's said to have relentless determination, almost never getting tired or really needing sleep at all. The Suffering games take place over the course of days, and he's just running around barefoot in a wife beater all fucking Die Hard style without ever sleeping or eating or taking any sort of breaks in between. Fighting literally hundreds of these malefactors that are capable of doing this and considerably stronger beings than that. His survivability is damn near unmatched. I mean, he's been drugged with heroin and meth and all sorts of stuff and didn't even notice the side effects. He's been shocked with electricity enough to kill a man. At one point, he was locked in a fucking gas chamber that was meant specifically to kill people, and he just walked right out of it. He's been hit with toxins and gas grenades and been set on fire and all sorts of crazy shit trying to kill him, and he just fucking survives through all of it. The man just doesn't die like normal people should. On top of all those crazy physical abilities, he has a lot of really weird supernatural powers. Like in the series, there's this thing called the Cataclysm, which is essentially just bad luck, I guess, that exists within the world, but it's specifically tied to Torque and just follows him anywhere he goes. Wherever Torque goes, there are earthquakes, sicknesses, malefactors show up and start murdering people, plagues, whatever the fuck you could possibly think of. Just bad shit starts to happen in the area where Torque is because he's followed by this Cataclysm event. Now, it's not something he can really bring into combat because he doesn't control it. It just always follows him. So while it may bring serious bad luck to all the specimens that he fights in this challenge, there's no guarantee that it will fuck with them or how much. So it's not something that can really be relied on. Of the three personalities, like I said, Torque is kind of the thug. He is the physical fighter type person. He's really good at combat and survival and that kind of stuff. But occasionally Blackmore takes over the personality, and while he does have a lot of the same physical abilities, they do say that he's not the physical fighter like Torque is. But he is considerably smarter than Torque is. He's good at things like strategizing. He's very charismatic. He's very manipulative. He knows how to survive in his own sort of way. Sadly, I don't think his way of survival is really going to help him all that much. Like, I don't see him manipulating the Patriarch in any way. But the Patriarch's whole goal is to create like a perfect species that supplants humanity, and he may actually see Torque and Blackmore as viable of being a part of that perfect species due to just how amazing their physical abilities are. And Blackmore is evil enough to actually let that shit happen and join him. So that is an option technically. Torque won't allow that, and he's not all for that shit, but that's like a whole thing in the game where Torque and Blackmore are constantly fighting with each other over who's dominant over the body. And in the game, you could play it good, evil, or neutral. If by the end of the game you're evil, Blackmore takes over the body from that point on. If you're good, Torque. If you're neutral, the fight just continues on. So while this survival challenge is going on, technically, if Blackmore is able to take control of the body, he might just stop fighting and join with Patriarch. And seeing just how powerful Torque is, specifically the creature, who I haven't talked about yet, he may actually be able to convince Patriarch. I didn't think about this before I started recording, but I like this idea. This is a cool idea. Anyway, last up we have the creature. And when Torque turns into the creature, nothing in his own game is physically capable of stopping him. The creature is an unstoppable beast of murder and violence. You see, the thing about Torque is while he is the good side, he still has a very high level of bloodlust. He's essentially a bad guy who's trying not to be a bad guy. He wants to be a family man and a good dude, despite the fact that he actually really likes violence and death and all the same horrible shit that Blackmore does. Blackmore really wants to dive into that shit and just do that and just that be their life, and Torque says, no, that's wrong, I don't want to do that. The creature is the embodiment of all of that desire and essentially the beast inside Torque released. And while Torque is strong enough to kill malefactors with his bare hands, the creature is on a whole other level. Now, how much stronger the creature is compared to Torque, we don't know. We just know it's considerable. So how will Torque do in the challenge? Well, he's fucking moonwalking through all of the fucking lower level ones. Like, it's not even close. Yeah, they can break through metal doors given enough time, but again, Torque just kills superior beings with his bare hands. Just like crushes their skull and punches a fucking hole through their face. Like, Torque won't even need guns against the Clots and the Gorefests. It's gonna be super one-sided. It's really not gonna be until the higher level specimens and it's even gonna be a problem. Now, while Torque isn't that fast, he's just kind of superhuman, like a little bit above normal speeds. So he's probably gonna be somewhere around the same speed as the Flesh Pound. I really don't think that matters. The Flesh Pound is shown to have intelligence, like he'll block bullets when you fire at him with his like fist gauntlet things, and he'll try to avoid damage to his head and chest when he can, so he's clearly has some form of intelligence. But he isn't the god of death that Torque is. I mean, Torque is thrown in areas with hundreds of these fucking things all the time, and he wipes them all out with unbelievable success. There's a doctor in the Suffering franchise, I don't exactly remember his name, but basically he said when Torque was released from his prison cell, one thing's for sure, we may not all be saved, but he'll live through this, whatever it is. Like, he just knew from that point Torque will survive. Not just because of his physical ability, but again, his relentless determination to live and his absolute love of essentially the art of violence. He's gonna fucking love this challenge. Torque might actually not want it to end. But when he gets to the Flesh Pound, they will be able to physically harm him, but they're a minor to mid-minor threat at best. And even if they do manage to hurt him, his regen will get over that shit really fucking fast. So up next we have the bosses, and what exactly can they do to him? Well, they can shoot guns at him. That will hurt, you know. But again, unlike any of the bosses, Torque is actually like a trained marksman and very experienced with gunfighting. So he's not really gonna have too much of an issue avoiding getting hit. And if he does get hit, he'll regen from it, so it's not really that big of a deal. He's not as physically strong or as durable as those bosses, but pretty much none of their hacks are gonna do anything to him. Like I said, Torque has survived electricity, he's survived all sorts of poisonous gases. I think he was even hit by mustard gas at some point. I don't know if he was ever hit by nerve gas, but the fact that he's shown a resistance to so many other forms of toxins and basically doesn't even get affected by them, it's probably pretty safe to assume that he probably has some sort of resistance to the nerve gas as well. He won't have any defense whatsoever against the absorption, but Hans Volter actually has to get up to him and touch him in order to do that. And if he does, Torque can just turn into the creature, and then do you really want to fucking touch him at that point? Now, I can't say that creature is stronger than Hans. Maybe he's not. But the gap in their strength will definitely close enough to the point that Torque can actually fight against Volter in a physical confrontation with his fists. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. The creature has this giant fucking saw blade thing that just cuts right through like a dozen people with one swipe. He's also considerably bigger than Hans, so it wouldn't be that smart to touch him at that point. Because of all this, I think that Torque is surviving for a really fucking long time. While every boss is capable of killing him, he's also capable of killing them, and he's vastly more physically skilled than they are in every manner of violence you can think of. In order for Torque to be successfully taken down, he would have to be completely surrounded by every high level specimen there is and multiple bosses to ensure that he will be taken out. Now, will that work? Yes. Several bosses and a bunch of high levels will actually take him down, just through sheer number and the fact that they can all damage him. Eventually, his healing factor is not going to work. It's only seen working on things like broken bones and gashes. He's not like growing an arm back. So you basically have two possibilities here. Either one, Torque remains in control of his body, and he just continues to fight the fucking Zeds forever until he's eventually taken down by just sheer numbers, having to fight several bosses who are of equivalent strength to himself, but just being outnumbered by them. Or Blackmore takes over and then makes the smart decision and actually tries to talk to Patriarch and says, hey, let me become one of you, and you can use my DNA to make even better Zeds. And Patriarch will 100% agree with that. Patriarch has no issue having people join his side. I mean, Hans was a Nazi doctor who he had join his side because he knew he was capable of making better versions of Zeds. Patriarch has no issue with that, and Blackmore is going to play on that big time. So will he survive? I think yes, he will. He'll actually become a boss monster in the Killing Floor universe. Will Torque survive? For a very, very long time. Not forever. He will eventually be taken down. If he ever runs into more than one boss at a time, he's going to really fucking struggle. But even then, the entire time he's having that struggle, he is going to have a fucking ball of a time. He's going to fucking love it. It's going to be like Chuck E. Cheese. Wait, no, Chuck E. Cheese sucks now. Where's like a really cool place? Dave and Buster's? Is that where the kids go? Dave and Buster's? I don't know. But that's going to be all for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. If you join the membership, you get stuff early. And join my new Twitter. You know what? This is getting really fucking long. This exit is getting really fucking long. I can't just keep adding shit to this. Okay, all right. I'm gonna end it. I'll see you guys later. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?